Greetings, my dear viewers, it's March the 18th and as usual in my first video I'm going to discuss not the frontline events but the events that happen at the background of that military action. As you know, I follow the activities in social networks and in infospace very carefully, and for the last 2 days I have noticed a very interesting trend in the Ukrainian social networks. They began promotion of the thesis that very soon, in 10 days, on March the 28th, another NATO summit will take place where the treaty members will take a decision to enter Ukraine with NATO troops. In this way, NATO troops will save Ukraine. Let's see how realistic this is. If we look carefully at what the Ukrainian so-called partners from the West said about the conflict in Ukraine back in the fall of 2021, we will find out that they stated that they would not defend the territory of Ukraine with their own military. No NATO troops will stand on the Ukrainian land. Yes, they say, we will certainly help official Kiev, but the latter must act on its own. Okay, you said, that was before the war, but what happened next? Remember the first flash mob, which was also supposed to mobilize the population of Ukraine to fight to the last Ukrainian? This flash mob said, the whole world is with us. As I said in one of my videos before, Ukrainian point of view says that it is not the whole world which stands for them. They're only approximately 1/5 in population of the world. It is, of course, the United States of America, Canada, and most of Europe. The rest of the world is against Ukraine. Moreover, it indirectly supports Russia. This thesis has become obvious even to the ordinary people of Ukraine, so another one is thrown into society. NATO will now definitely enter Ukraine with its troops because it cannot be otherwise. Why so? Because the situation on the fronts is simply bad for the Ukrainian armed forces. Approximately half of the military vehicles have already been destroyed. The troops are exhausted. Some are already surrounded, like the Ukrainian units at Mariupol. The rest of the Donetsk front is about to be breached and later surrounded. The situation near Kharkov is also not looking good for the armed forces of Ukraine at the moment. Kiev is almost surrounded. Russian troops are approaching Kryvyi Rogh. They have surrounded Nikolaev, and everyone is also waiting for an amphibious assault near Odessa. And today, in order to mobilize the population of Ukraine and to continue to hold on the confidence that very soon they would win, the one and only thesis is used. NATO troops will come and support Ukraine. Hold out a little longer for another 10, another 20 days. They will definitely come and break the backbone of the Russian army. So then, why do they do it? They know that there will be no NATO troops on their territory of Ukraine. There is one simple reason. Exactly the same reason why they started the war in Donbass in 2014. It is to spill as much blood as possible, so that there would be a lot of problems on those lands after the Russian Federation solves all its problems in Ukraine. That's the reason why the infrastructure is being barbarically destroyed today. Please know that it is not a coincidence that the Ukrainian armed forces are now stationed in kindergartens, schools, hospitals, and social infrastructure facilities, thus forcing Russian troops to strike at them. For example, in my hometown, Sumy, one of the headquarters of the Ukrainian armed forces is located inside a children's hospital, which means that they cover themselves by children. Yes, of course, no one will strike at the children's hospital, because there would be monstrous. But eventually, the people who gave these orders will be brought to justice. For those who today consider themselves as the authorities in Ukraine, the most important thing is to leave a scorched earth behind. Why? It is simple. Very simple. Today in social media, the idiotic patriots can be hysterical as much as they want about the fact that Ukrainians will never live in peace and friendship with Russians. The last 8 years are a perfect proof that the brains of the Ukrainian people could be easily altered. Once they get under the influence of some information, and within a few years they start to think completely differently. That is why not only the official authorities in Kiev, but also their sponsors in Washington and London are most afraid of today, because it was them who were involved in the brainwashing of Ukrainian citizens. And they are aware enough that it is not only possible, it is inevitable. And what they're most afraid of is that those people who will survive and remain in Ukraine today will tomorrow be used to create new brigades in some new Ukrainian military or something else. That soon after, they will stand shoulder to shoulder like the brigades of the armed forces of the Republic of Belarus, together with the brigades of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. This is inevitable and has been proved many times by history, and this is what they are most afraid of. That is why they are looking for any possibility to convince the Ukrainians to take up arms and die for their interests, in an absolutely futile and pointless war for the current government. This is why they create different informational nonsense, imaginary victories. The whole world is with us. NATO troops will enter tomorrow. But all this is made up in order to make you, the ordinary Ukrainian people, believe in a close victory, in which those people who are encouraging you no longer believe themselves. That's what I wanted to say in this video. That's all for now. Bye.